findings of our study, which is there's a lot happening. So I'd like to share the good, the bad, and what I think the real answer was, which is there's a lot of unfulfilled potential that we've yet to see. So we'll start with the good. Maybe. Next.
Sorry.
So we'll start with the good. One more slide.
Somebody else. People coming down now.
I think it's good. Make a comment. The good. We've seen rapid penetration of mobile, first and foremost, over in Nigeria. I think it's over 75% of people have mobile phones. Across Africa, between 1998 and 2013, we went from 0.5% penetration to over 63%. Next. In addition, across Nigeria, over 30% internet penetration, largely building on the back of mobile penetration, which we're seeing. Next. And then to my point about the impact on economic growth, so the World Bank has done a study that showed a correlation between a 10% increase in broadband penetration correlating with a 1.38% increase in GDP. And that correlation, what I find most exciting is, while it is a correlation, increasingly we're seeing evidence of the causation between the access to internet and an impact on the economy. Next. Yeah, so across the board what we're seeing is that the internet, mobile phones, what have you, this is no longer a luxury good. It was introduced in the developing world, the developed world in that way. But across emerging markets, this is no longer a luxury good. This is actually a necessity and a key driver of growth. Next. Just re-emphasize that point. So where are we seeing innovation? Let's just start with the basics. We're seeing innovation in infrastructure. I mentioned before that infrastructure is one of the key barriers in many times, but there's been a lot of growth, a large push. In East Africa, we saw the investment in the Teams cables, which innovated in that it brought together a partnership between government, public sector, and the private sector. Google is playing around with white spaces very creatively, looking at ways to extend access to rural communities, as are others such as Microsoft and others. Next. Beyond infrastructure itself, we're seeing a whole new wave of social networks being created. The individual touch points that are created by mobile phones are now quickly being created, and quite frankly, in Africa, faster by mobile phones than it is by the internet. By computers and other devices. So there's no shortage of innovation. That in and of itself is really exciting. So as I mentioned, we surveyed over 1,300 businesses across these 4 countries. We also looked across 7 different sectors of the economy and 8 different impact areas, ranging from the role of the internet providing information management to creating supply chain management solutions, to facilitating financing, and to supporting leadership, governance, communications, and marketing. Certainly, certainly not a shortage of innovative ideas. A few brief examples. I hope you've all read the 170-page report that we've put out. But a few quick examples I wanted to move from, as I mentioned, the economic impact, but increasingly we're seeing impact on social and developmental goals as well. In the education space, solutions such as the partnership between Binding and WorldReader is quickly creating access to books, to reading, to learning. I think in Nigeria there were over 10 million annual page reads, and across Africa there were nearly 200,000 readers who are accessing these short stories, novels, and books largely by phone. Second is government. My colleagues here can speak in great depth, and I have no doubt that these stats were outdated as soon as they hit the report they were published in. But as of March 13, there will be over 40,000 jobs have been created off the back of over 80,000 jobs being advertised. And finally, access to financial services. Finally, access to financial services. And what we found most interesting here is that we're seeing not only the opportunity to create access to transfers as we're seeing, and everyone talks about the PESA, of course, but not only that financial transaction, but also seeing access to credit, savings, insurance, so a whole range of financial services. But even more importantly, I think, is the role of payment solutions as an enabler of a whole lot of the things that are going to be happening online. So how are we getting greater access? I know Global Partners has recently also partnered on a payments with a payment solution. Companies like Paga are partnering with, if you will, with Binary to create access to payments of solutions such in education as well. So payments really being an underlying enabler even further of innovation. And finally, the good news is we're seeing increased investments coming from the public sector and the private sector. Investments in a lot of e-commerce, investments in rural Africa. We're seeing groups like Helios who are actually shifting their investment, their typical investment size and structure, and looking at different types of investments, particularly in technology, recognizing that there is a huge opportunity here. One Africa Media has also been investing in some of our colleagues here today. And then groups like the Rockefeller Foundation, so multi-billion-dollar foundation, is looking at ways to understand how ICT can be an enabler for supporting not only job creation, but education of youth and unemployed youth, and trying to facilitate a connection to job opportunities. Next. And now there's the bad news. The first part of the bad news is access. We're still, in Nigeria, I guess less than 30% of people are online. Less than 10% of African businesses are online. So the kind of potential that we're seeing is limited to a very, very small segment. The other is about access, so we're not only talking about infrastructure, but we're talking about the skills and abilities to access and engage with the content that is available once you do it. Second is scale. We're suffering from something called pilotitis. There are way too many small scale. Well, that's great. Let a thousand flowers bloom. There's thousands of ideas out there that are great, showing a lot of potential. The problem is when an initiative business has been in pilot phase for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Is that still a pilot, or is it time to shut something down and work on a different idea? It makes a significant modifications. So something there about seeing investment channeled towards moving from the pilot phase into something more substantial that's going to drive growth. And finally, there's a challenge around policy and innovation. There's limited links at the moment between policy in the sense that we have policy that's influencing the technology space of ICT, whether it's hardware, software, devices related. There are policies that are being developed within individual sectors, industries, health, agriculture, and then there's the general doing business policies. How hard or easy is it to register a business? What are procurement policies related to connecting these initiatives? These aren't yet converging in a way that's going to ask the question, how do we best leverage information and digital information across all of these spheres in order to maximize impact? And there's a bit of a reputation. Not always positive, but I do like to think that the 419ers are actually just an example of the innovation movement in this country and how you push past it. So it's real concerns, but I think there's a lot of exciting stories about infrastructure. And what I mean by that is not only how many people have access to the internet and what is the speed and the quality of the internet we have, but what is the general infrastructure surrounding that? So let's start with power. Do you have access to electricity? Obviously, you're not getting any internet. We ranked all the countries in sub-Saharan Africa just to see what relative positioning was. And what we observed from this was, number one, that there's obviously a correlation between the two that allows you to maximize impact. You can't just invest in infrastructure, you need to at the same time be thinking about local content in particular. And your ease of doing business characteristics, a whole range of other factors. The second was, you can start to see that there's actually a significant limitation in your ability to grow, let's say, horizontally, which is limited by your growth in infrastructure. Vertically linked to your growth horizontally. In other words, the continuous investment in infrastructure is constantly needed in order to be able to move forward. So coming through all of this, and like I said, a very high-level summary what we looked at. There are three areas we think were critical for Nigeria in particular. Number one was around payment platforms. As I mentioned, this being an enabler that allows us to take these millions of virtual connections that are being made on a regular basis and start translating that into economic value. Second, continuous investment in infrastructure. And again, it's not just getting fiber in the ground, it's not just building those wireless networks, but it's the investment in the policies that are going to make it easier to start a business, easier to register your IP, easier for investors to come in and make those investments in local businesses that are starting out. And finally, an investment in understanding how policy is either going to enable or inhibit the way in which innovation happens. So it's critical to understand the convergence across the three spheres I mentioned, the technologies, the different industry needs, and general doing business, and ensure that that's continuously enabling the growth of innovation, particularly realizing ICT as an enabler for innovation. Thank you very much.
In the absence of my wife. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Robin, that was excellent. Thank you very, very much for sharing that with us. The full report is available on the internet at impactoftheinternet.com. Okay? /Nigeria if you're interested in the Nigerian specific report, but the whole report is available over there. What we're going to spend sort of the next roughly 1 hour, okay, doing is actually an interactive session where we are going to take questions from members of the audience, and those questions will actually be discussed by this elite front panel of superior minds who are here. Some of the brands were actually part of the report that you saw up there. So by way of introduction, so we know who is going to be discussing your question when you ask it, let me start from the far left, where you have, Mike. Sorry. Okay, Mike Obalu is from Nigeria's first bank. Quite literally the first, and they're called First Bank. Can I have a round of applause? Sitting beside Mike is somebody well known to those of us who buy things online, because he brought us soccer in Nigeria. And Slim Shagai of Conga. Round of applause. The gentleman beside him needs no introduction. If you've ever watched Nollywood online, there's an 8 out of 10 chance, okay, that you're watching his content. Jason Njoku of Europa TV. I said that there were 1 or 2 of the brands sitting here, up there. One of the best known brands, if not the best known brand, when it comes to human capital online in Nigeria, belongs to Mr. Adeomi of Jogoman. Can I have a round of applause? You already heard from Robin Miller, Dalway. Another round of applause. Well, financial inclusion was one of the key things that was mentioned. So the next gentleman, I think, is playing a significant part, given that he's bankrolling quite a number of SMEs. Mr. Akin Oyebode of Stanley IDTC. We are here, and you guys in Idea Hub are there because somebody decided that they were going to fund today to make it available for us. But beyond that, they are the brains and the funding behind the Dowdell report. And from Google today is Titi Akisomi. Those of you who travel from here to Abuja or from here to Port or wherever, as regularly as unfortunately I have to, know now that ARIC is the primus inter pares when it comes to airlines, and you can actually buy, a ticket from ARIC using SMS on your mobile phone. The brains behind that is Mr. Slip Trader himself, Femi Akinde. Thumbprint, fingerprints, whatever it is you print. Those of you who don't know, 2015, we're going to be digital again. The brains behind that was a company, homegrown, called Init. Mr. Femi Tyree. If you're looking for it in Nigeria, and it is in Nigeria, the best place to find it is to connect with it. From VConnect, BPAC. So we've done private sector, we've done the money, and we said, it was private sector and academia, representing academia from Pan-Atlantic, I got it right, not Pan-African. Pan-Atlantic University, the Lagos Business School, is my dear friend. This is Olayinka David West. Can I have a round of applause? There are others who have snuck in, and are not sitting on the front row. So please, Mr. Ikazubo, can I see where you are in this group? Because you're supposed to be here. He's run away. Don't worry. We know who you are. From Nice.com, Mr. Oshodi Ikazubo. Can I have a round of applause for him? By way of introduction, my name is Tony Davis, and for my sins, I'm the Executive Chairman of MobileMonday. Thank you for coming. So, at this point, if somebody will give me the second mic, actually, do I have to run this myself? What we're going to do is discussed by our panel before we move on to the next set of three. We are hoping we can get through 3 sets of 3 questions each. That is 6, which is 18, which is a lot. We're hoping we can do that, but if we can't, we'll stop at 2, because what we'd like to do is a hard stop at 8 o'clock. So, can I see by a show of hands if you do have a question, so that we can get a mic to you, please? Any questions about the report? There's 1. Any other? There's 2. And can I have a third question, please? A third question, please. There's 3. Thank you very much. Number 1 here, please. Number 2 back there. And number 3. Idea Hub, if you can hear us, please, can you get your questions ready?
Hi, my name is Hirin. I'm from VConnect. My question to Ms. Miller. You mentioned that the number of Nigerian businesses online. Number of African businesses online, the percentage is less than 10%. Do you have a specific number for Nigeria? How many businesses are online for Nigeria? Thank you.
Hey, how many Nigerian businesses are actually online? No. Next question, number 2.
My name is Obatabo Falani. I work with Terra. Well, basically, my question is bordering around an appreciation of education and cognitive skills for people to even interact with the content of the internet in the first place. What efforts are multinational companies such as Google, IBM, and all that players in the country currently making to do a sort of pull strategy to pull people in by embarking on CSR activities such as educating young people in various schools all over the country? We actually have a population of very high population of young people in the country, and these people are way below 25 or below 30. If these are the people that are interacting with the internet, and many of them are not educated or they are receiving poor education, what efforts are these businesses that are currently in the country making to ensure that their future customers actually purchase their products in the future?
Well, I've constantly asked this question, like what we mentioned during the presentation of our report. Are we any close to solving the PayPal issue, the issue with payments? Because I've always felt that if we can solve the issue with getting MasterCard and Visa card money here, the PayPal issue should actually follow the same line, but still in limbo.
Alright, so payments, online payments. So from here, I don't know if we can get back there. Maybe we can.
Okay, we've got 3 questions coming out of the e-learning center. The first question is really the question of businesses online. Okay, how many, what shape, what color, what kind of businesses do we have online or can we expect online? I've embellished it a bit to broaden the question so we can have a discussion about it. The second question is educating the populace. So how do we get Nigerians to be techno-literate or digi-literate enough to engage online? Okay, what are the thoughts of the panel? And the third and final is around payments. Are Visa and MasterCard the only way for Nigerians to get online? Does Verve have a role to play? Are there other payments like Paga or micro, what do we call it, mobile payments that can actually play a role in that? So members of the panel, please get your thinking hats on about those 3 questions. We'll take them one at a time while I go away and I collect the 3 questions from the Idea Center. We're going to start with you, Nika. First question, businesses online.
I think TT might be a better to answer that question since Google had a recent initiative of getting African businesses online. But generally, in terms of just speaking to all the questions, these things take time. And one thing we know is that we're actually progressing in the positive direction. Things will take some time, trust needs to be built up. The gentleman that spoke about payments, we're talking about payments at different levels. Are we talking about domestic payments? Are we talking about international payments? And we need to get specific in terms of what exactly do we need? Because I think you mentioned PayPal, and PayPal still having a restriction in terms of usage from Nigeria and within Nigerian things. Those are corporate issues that are based on the institute of country trust. Those will begin to evolve. And there's also an amount of risk involved in any business decision. So PayPal also has to look at what is our risk, what are the volumes of the transaction, etc., etc. It's not, business is not about being charitable or being social in that sense. They also need to look at it from the economic perspective and the damage to their own business and to their own institutional reputations as well. So opening up Nigeria, when we don't have proper cybersecurity laws, etc., what is that a risk you would be willing to take and assure your shareholders that, this is a good business idea that we're engaging in. So let's not look at it only from the consumer's perspective, but let's look at it from the whole business here, and let's have a better understanding of what are the dangers. So when we're talking about, what Nigeria needs to do to get online, we're talking holistically, we're not just talking in pockets about different things that are interesting to us. Okay, so I'll stop there now.
That's why I wanted to broaden it out rather than address the specific. Hear from the panel. Please, let's not, I want us to have a holistic discussion about the report we just heard. So when you ask your question, please, can we have it in the context of the report? Thank you. Please go ahead.
So I think the first question, how many businesses are online? I don't have the exact answer to that, but from reports from Smilan, it says that we have over 17 million businesses in Nigeria, and structured businesses, that means with fixed structure, and businesses that can be registered with CSE are 4 million and above. And I think we're working hard. A lot of content providers are actually working towards bringing businesses online, and we will go on that. We don't have exact numbers on how many businesses online. So WeConnect has over 800,000 businesses online as we speak. On the second question about educating users and businesses about how they can use internet, I think social media companies in Nigeria are playing a very important role in educating people on how internet can be used. Because the cost of telecommunication in Nigeria was very high. Sending is very high, sir, I feel, and sending an SMS was expensive. And WhatsApp, I think everyone in this room has WhatsApp. You agree with me? Right? WhatsApp and Google and I think Eskimi, and these are platforms which almost every one of us is using today. And they've told us that these are platforms, they've shown us that these are platforms which are working. So on the user side, that education is working, and there are a lot of companies like us in WeConnect who are educating businesses on basics they can use, businesses can use to come online and take the benefit. And I really like the World Bank data, which says with 10% increase in penetration in internet, it increases the GDP level by 1.85%. That's a brilliant data to understand. I think that data goes to the government to actually provide the infrastructure to improve the internet penetration in Nigeria. The last one about PayPal. I think the government of Nigeria has taken a lot of steps by making e-money, that means having accounts, putting your money and making online transactions and putting restrictions to that. Very convenient. More and more people are actually opening accounts, and mobile banking is actually improving as well. So payments are going online compared to what we had as scenario in 2 years back. Scenario is improving, and I'm sure it will improve the faster pace. We don't need a PayPal exactly. I think a Paga or any of the mobile company money partners will do well here. Thanks.
Okay, I'd like to respond to about how multinationals aiding to develop young ones to bring them up. And when you talk about people like eConnect, it's what they're doing. Talk about people like Google, it's what they're doing with the GSAs. The GSAs are Google Play ambassadors. And what this is going to do is organize events, sort of talk about technology, how to make use of it, how to build websites, how to use different applications and tools. So these people are putting together groups of people to bring them up to speed on the different things they can do online. With respect to payments, you have Paga, one of the reports statistics show there that as of March, Paga had already swiped about 18 billion through its systems. So we have these systems being built and new and rolling out over time. The same way it's happening on different mobile money operators. Adoption is low, yes, but we're slowly getting there. We're going to have that change by the next 1 year based on what's already happening. Thank you.
The first question to do with getting businesses online, I think businesses always do what's in their best interest. A business will strive to get online if its margins will increase by doing so. And one of the things we help businesses do, or Slimtrade helps businesses do, is to help transact online. Transacting online means a business is primarily looking to sell more. If you discover the online channel as an easy distribution channel for you, your margins reduce because your distribution costs are lower, and that's a good thing for you. So there is effort in that regard, like the first lady, one of the speakers up here said, there is more time, or we have to be a bit more patient. But businesses are realizing that it is good for their bottom line if they try e-commerce out, or m-commerce out as a means of distribution, which is what Slimtrade does. Regarding payment, what we found is that ample payment opportunities in Nigeria or payment companies in Nigeria, and people are using payment companies in Nigeria. The issue is you just have to create a reason for them to use payment. I'm not sure where the PayPal thing comes in, because unless you're using a foreign denominated card, it really doesn't play much of a part in this part of the world. What you really must look at is what does your bank have to offer you for e-payment, and are you utilizing it? So, and then the last thing about education, we find that people use the internet once it for the internet makes your life easier, so to speak. So people will self-educate themselves on disseminated information by Twitter, Facebook, for one thing, and you transact easier on the internet for another. We had an event on Friday at TEDx Lagos. We had no paid advertising whatsoever, or paid formal advertising. All the advertising we did was on Facebook and Twitter. We had 1,100 people turn up. So people are being, because this country is skewed towards the young, the high usage of social media, there's a high followership of social media. So what we found is people will teach themselves when their best interest to do so, on how to maximize utility of social media and the internet. Same thing with businesses. Businesses adopt e-commerce and mobile commerce if they know it's in their best interest to do so. So we're all, it's just the way human beings are, we look out for their best interest. Thank you.
Very beautifully said. I find it slightly weird that I can see some people there, but then there's so many arms behind at the back of my head. So, there are two levels at which I won't be able to address the issues that have been raised. So one is the question around how many Nigerian businesses are actually online. The basic answer is it's not really known at this moment. And that's one of the biggest problems we have, not just in Nigeria, but in sub-Saharan Africa. The fact that we don't have our own data. The fact that the data that exist have been collated elsewhere and does not necessarily reflect the local reality. But it's not all bad news. The more important thing is the fact that increasingly there are more businesses, and you'll be surprised. One of the businesses that we know that is online is a young man who has a bookshop somewhere in, I think, Mambo in Ibadan. And he sells online, and it's profitable. So increasingly there are more businesses getting online from initiatives that have been done by Google, Google Get Nigerian Businesses Online, through to initiatives done by the Nigerian Internet Registry Association. But one of the things I'd like to be able to do is just to get a sense of how many Nigerian businesses are online. I'll ask the question here, because majority of us are either SME owners, entrepreneurs. How many of you have your own internet website? By a show of hands, both here and at Idea Hall. So this gives you a sense of it. Supposedly within this community, you are more aware of what the internet can do for you. But then we still have plus or minus less than 50% of the room indicating that yes, their businesses are online. That gives you a sense. Second is the question of digital literacy. A lot of the work that we currently do, and I get asked the question sometimes that how does Google make money in Nigeria? It's not a question that you can answer. I think the more important question is how are we enabling the ecosystem such that not just Google can thrive, but any business that decides to do business online can thrive. And I think that's the more important thing. So we do a lot of work around digital literacy, not just for businesses, but for a whole range of players. And that brings me to my third point, which is something I haven't heard back. Sometimes we are so busy in the business of making money that we forget that for us to be able to thrive beyond a certain level, it is important that there is the right policies and regulations in place. So you want to be able to address the issues around online and mobile payments. Paga can exist, yes. Mobile money, Verve, InterSwitch can exist. But one of the key questions I always ask is, what kind of consumer protection policies do we have in Nigeria? How effective are they? Do you as a consumer know what your rights are? What's your recourse? Those are the questions that we don't necessarily have addressed as yet. And for me, the Dalbert report begins to bring that to the forefront of our mind. within Google, my work is around leading policy and engagement with government particularly, because we understand that when we have a thriving ecosystem, and that means private businesses can work, it means that the right policies and regulations are in place, and that you also need to have an engaged populace. Then everybody literally can slightly make some more money. So that for me, I think, is another aspect of what the Darwin report points to that would help us address particularly the last question around online and mobile payments. Thank you.
Okay, I'll speak to. So again, everyone has said the story about lack of data, but they're very good proxies. So speaking as a banker, we see the use of payment gateways increasing significantly. In the last 2 years, our payment gateway adoption has grown by 300-400%. So while I can't say how many businesses are online, that's a fairly good indicator that people are trading online and therefore need payment gateways to close those trades. And I think also something that has raised that bar has been the development of aggregators. So you have people who today cannot own their sites, but will host their products on someone's mall, and therefore from one platform you could aggregate 200 to 300 businesses. And guys like Big Connect do a great job as well. By listing close to 1 million businesses, it does give those businesses, and if you look at those numbers, 800,000 clients out of 4 million structured businesses, as Midan says, is 20% of the formal SME ecosystem. So those are pretty great numbers from the developing economy. To the question around literacy, I think literacy is always a function of functionality. So if you look at, for example, and I'll use banking again, sorry, that's my comfort zone. But if you look at 5 years ago, cash transactions, cash deposits were 80% of all deposits in the banking halls. Today, from one banker's perspective, less than 10% of withdrawals now happen in the bank. So you have people who now are comfortable using debit cards. But again, there's policy as well that supports that. So we've got the central bank, for example, from a banking perspective, using policy to drive adoption of behavior. So I think it's a mix of two things. It's always going to be functionality, and in some cases you have to nudge people using policy. Thank you.
I think you've all heard me talk quite a bit, but just quickly thinking about these three questions, one being how and why do we get businesses online, the second being what is the education or digital literacy that's required to get people online, third is how do we promote the growth of the payment systems. I think it's all related to the question of what value are we adding. For businesses getting online, I mean, we saw a very bullish set of 1,300 businesses across our 4 countries who were over 80% coming back to us saying, we not only think the internet is going to help grow our business, but we think it's going to allow us to employ more people. So immediate impact. The question there being what kind of impact, and again, what we were seeing both, it was twofold. It was top line solutions that are driving top line growth and bottom line impact. So top line being better access to consumers and the ability to sell products and services, for example. But bottom line efficiency is the ability to make your business run smoother and at a lower cost than it would otherwise. On the education side of things, the value being kind of content are you delivering? Let's get kids active in schools. I know it's pretty basic, but from day one, engaging with these kinds of content, recognizing it's a highly complicated answer because of lack of electricity, lack of infrastructure and connectivity. But the younger you do it, kids are extremely active and curious about different kinds of content solutions. And then third, the payment platforms. Again, my colleague was saying, what is the trigger? Why are people switching? It's not like we have a shortage of existing financial services. They may be, or access to financial services. They may be informal savings, maybe through community network or, living under the mattress. So what's driving me to change the way that I'm engaging? What's the trigger that's going to make me move differently? And I think as we figure that out, that's also going to be
Good evening. So I would like to talk a little bit about the impact of the internet for the twist, and the way I see the internet is basically the internet is an agent of disruption in Nigeria, especially just looking at the population in Nigeria. We have a lot of young people, and because more than 60% of young people in Nigeria are under the age of 30, and as a result of that, that's a huge demographic dividend. And just thinking about the demographic dividend, in order to be able to engage corporate Nigeria, in order to be able to start businesses, it's a fantastic opportunity for you to disrupt industries. When you look at the retail space in Nigeria, the biggest disruptors are the e-commerce players, either our friends at Conga or Jumia. And when you look at virtually all the sectors, whether it's property, you have a lot of online classified property coming online. And even if it's up to SME listings, our friends at VConnect are here. So the ability to be able to engage corporate Nigeria, to be able to challenge the establishment, that is one great thing the internet has been able to transform in the last 5 years. And just thinking about internet in Nigeria is still an extremely young industry. The way I did the internet industry in Nigeria, I would say started about 2005 with the launch of Nairaland. And just thinking about it today, over a space of 8 to 9 years, over $100 million have been invested in the industry, over 5 to 10,000 jobs have been created, and a lot of online businesses have employed people full-time and part-time basis. And I think for the very first time in our generation and in Nigeria, we're going to see huge transformation through the internet. So if you're thinking insurance, how can you get into the insurance industry? What is the lowest entry point into the insurance industry? What is the lowest capital requirement to start an online insurance business in Nigeria is via the internet. So I think the challenge to a lot of us here today is just sitting back and thinking about what are the lowest hanging fruits in Nigeria that you can attack, and thinking about attacking them is things that you can, a real problem that you can solve using the internet. And the internet offers you a fantastic opportunity to be able to do something, create a very simple product that addresses a real problem and get to scale very quickly. So when you look at the typical retail store, the profitability for a retail store is, I think, is a function of the basket of transactions based on the foot traffic. I think Sam can talk a little bit more about that. But when you think about what the internet can do, it allows you to be able to have about, let's say, 10,000 foot traffic on your website engaging on your site and doing real transactions. I think that's very transformational. And obviously, I think in terms of real impact and real wealth being created, when you solve a real problem, wealth is a derivative of solving a problem. And with that, lives, industries will be transformed. I guess a lot of impact will be created. So my challenge back to everybody in this room is, if you're thinking seriously about disrupting an industry, the internet is the best opportunity. If you're thinking about starting a business, the internet offers you an opportunity to start a business with minimal capital requirements. And it also offers you the ability to be able to build expertise and domain experience very quickly with each of the models. Thank you.
So thank you. So as I'm doing all these amazing ideas about obviously bringing people alive and how to do businesses and stuff, you guys did say very good tonight. I see internet as a massive time sector.
whenever I find most young people online, they're not necessarily searching for lawyers or accountants or legal reports. They're watching Miley Cyrus twerking on Video catching up with the latest content. In as much as it's a powerful transformative tool, most people use it as an entertainment service, quite simply. So in as much as us as a community, we obviously offer the products and services, which we hope they will use, in reality most people will end up in the behavior and YouTube. So I think if you want to gauge the literacy levels in Nigeria, go read any comments of any Nigerian newspaper, blog, or anything. That will kind of give you, and that is probably like the best example of how the education system is held in this country. So in as much as us as a community we can do what we hope we can do to contribute, and the businesses as well as them can do that as well. At the end of the day, the university system is failing. Our young people are borderline illiterate, to use quite harsh terms. And when they're coming online to argue with each other on Twitter about something which we haven't mentioned. So I think our internet industry is very, very, very early. Anybody who believes it's not lying to themselves or optimistic or trying to tell you something. So yeah, my version of internet is basically to spend just like wandering around wasting time if I'm not working. I probably find that most of my employees do the exact same thing. So when I wander around the office, I look at the computer screen, they're always trying to get off the computer or Facebook or regular engagement or something like that. So I think we need to be realistic about the nature of the internet today and try to build things which will hopefully add some value to people's lives beyond networking, money science.
Thanks everybody. So it's kind of hard to come up with anything original after what everyone has said. But yeah, I guess one thing that kept coming in my mind as I thought about this question of how many Nigerian businesses are online. I think it's easy for us sometimes to think about a Nigerian business being online in that sense of a business having a website posted on the internet. And that's kind of the way we define it. And as someone mentioned, Google has done a lot of good work bringing Nigerian businesses online to post their websites, and VConnect has done all kinds of interesting things and getting businesses to kind of have a physical presence online. But if we broaden the definition of what it means to be online a little bit more, I think there's a few more businesses that are online. So, you know, the entrepreneur who lives in Surulere who's selling goods via BBM, is she online? I would say yes. I mean, it rides internet protocol ultimately. Or the farmer in Plateau State who sells yams out of Southern Plateau into Lagos and gets his payments transferred via GT Connect or some other sort of online transfer method. Are they online? I would say yes. So if you broaden the definition a little bit more, you see that there's a foundation that's been laid. Many of these businesses don't have websites. Many of them may not be transacting directly. Not all of them are selling on Conga or some of the other online malls. But it's really exciting to see the change that has happened in the past sort of 10 years. I remember in 2005 when I tried to get my first internet connection at home. I tried to get a visa connection into my home, and I was quoted, I think it was about 350,000 naira just for the satellite dish. And then about 200,000 naira a month or something ridiculous like that. And that's changed a lot. And back then you go into a bank, you wouldn't be as sure that things would work. So that's brought in so much more. I think the thing about Nigeria that makes it so exciting, and just like you with what JC and Adeji said, is that we get so excited about how far things have gone. I talked to one gentleman earlier today and he said, how's Congo? Big, we're small, very small. It's still early days. I think all the online retailers in Nigeria are probably doing in the range of 1,000 orders a day, so that kind of range, give or take. But then you compare that to China, where one of Alibaba's properties, Taobao, last year processed 78 million orders in one day. So I mean, you get a sense of where we are in Nigeria. It's still, like I told the individual, we're in the first sentence of the first paragraph of the first chapter of this book. We haven't even started. But the encouraging thing is, I have a son, my one son. He's a baby, but he's big. He's quite large. And the Nigerian opportunity, I think, is kind of like that. Even though it's a baby, it's quite big. And so that's the encouraging part. But we still have a lot to learn. The other thing I think, Robin touched on this a little bit, the report touched on this a little bit, is that when you talk about businesses being online in the context of commerce, just sort of trading online, if you're not talking about digital goods, like Jason's goods, which are real goods, but they're digital, and you're talking about physical goods, the growth of online is constrained by just logistics and the ability to just move things around, right? So you click on the phone, and that phone is not going to pop out of the screen, it has to get around. And, we take it for granted when, you're in the States and in the UK and some other parts of the world where things move around very efficiently. And here it's just not the case. We have to move at pace with other things that are happening. Our roads, our railway system, the privatization of electricity, educational system. There's so many other things that limit how fast we can grow that we kind of have to go in step with. But it looks really good, but it's still very, 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 really early.
Okay. I think next time I'll sit somewhere in the middle so that I can hear some people's ideas and join to mine. I'm not waiting everybody has to say everything. But generally, touching on the first one, how many businesses have internet, it's data that is readily available. However, in my last world, I did a project with Google, and that's the Get Nigerian Businesses Online. And we found that with internet access, it became a significant leveler. And therefore, you had this lady that made cupcakes, in some obscure location in Ikeja. She was able to sell more than 3 times what she was able to sell just because she now was online. She was receiving orders from people she didn't know, people she couldn't reach. Okay, so clearly there's significant benefit in getting Nigerian businesses online. But then, what really is the challenge? I think 2 things are the challenges. Speaking to the other question about how do we get people knowledgeable enough to get online. I have a few siblings at home. Someone that lived with me and she didn't try to get an email. She didn't try to visit, to go buy stuff online. But she goes online to watch Nigerian videos online. So clearly, content is very key to getting people online. If we have the right content, thanks to Europe, people will come online. Secondly is access. My little child, just about 4 years old, is able to get on my iPad and is able to actually navigate. He knows to go type and 10, and is able to access it. So clearly, access to the internet becomes key, and that is included. So some years ago, access to the internet was very expensive. Today, there's a battle over who will give the first month free, who will give buy 2 months and get 1 month free. So clearly, that is included. Speaking to the issue of the payment gateways, I worked for First Bank. In 2005, it was difficult to say that Nigerians actually carry cards. In 2004, and today, we have over 7 million cards. We are seeing online transactions grow in multiple folds. Now, the mobile banking just kicked off about a year ago, and we are seeing major traction. We've grown from 0 to almost 500,000 customers. We are not yet 1 year in the space as First Bank. Okay, clearly, these payment gateways that we look forward to coming from outside to come define businesses here in Nigeria. They have a role to play, but then I'm sure that increasingly you see Nigerian payment businesses to provide those services and to be able to align their services to basic needs of Nigerians. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Can I have a round of applause?
Okay, I understand that the guys in Idea Hub can't hear us properly. Can you hear me, Idea Hub? If you do, wave your hand, please. No, evidently not, they can't hear us. Can you hear? Wave your hand. Oh, okay, you can hear us. Fantastic. All right, I think it's because I'm loud. We're going to get our panelists to be a bit louder over the next set of questions. And this one's going to be rapid fire very, very quickly. And it is around, we've addressed in everything we've talked about, we've talked a bit about the businesses that are online, we've talked about education, we've talked about payments. But payment was only one aspect of the report's recommendation, which was around impact. There are others that I would like for the panelists to sort of address and, speak their mind on. They are as follows. The first is around innovation policy. What are the policies that you believe the government needs to put in place to facilitate innovation in the use of the internet? What are the policies that you believe the government, federal, state, or local, need to put in place to facilitate innovation in the use of the internet? The second one is around scale, my pet peeve. We have become beauty contest winners all over the globe. While, like somebody, I think Robin said, yes, let 1,000 flowers bloom, how do we achieve global scale? So when we look at Jogoland, Konga, and Iroko, you guys seem to have cracked that, where your systems are scalable and they are handling, even at 1,000 orders a day, that's fairly decent. How do we, across the piece, achieve scalability? The third and the final one is around access. What wasn't said is there is now a national broadband policy in Nigeria that is meant to provide access. But we all know that up to 80%, maybe 90%, depending on who you talk to, of the mobile phones within the system are not broadband ready. They're not smartphones that will do broadband. So the question becomes, what is going to happen or should happen with access? And this time, my dear friend, may I have your response?
Okay. On the issue of policies, I think two things. One is data protection. Okay, how do we put in place the right laws to make sure that when people do collect people's data online, they are able to give it the right protection. Secondly is to do with consumer protection and awareness. Okay, now if a consumer knows what his rights are, where it starts and where it stops, he is better encouraged to be able to use the internet. So I think those two for me are very pertinent. Okay, let me just add the last one. We need to have the right legislation around things to do with Electronic Evidence Act, things to do with laws to protect people who actually do transactions online. Secondly, on the issue of scaling, for me, the fastest way to scale in terms of being able to have the capacity to support large volumes of transactions is simply one word, the cloud. I think cloud computing really can actually break all of the barriers and make it easier for young businesses to begin to do businesses online. Take for example, if you're a young business and you are starting out and you need, for example, to do office communications and you think to go the route of certain products, it becomes very expensive. But for example, if you are using apps such as maybe the Google apps and some of their free tools, it becomes easier for that business to actually get on with providing its services online. Well, let me stop here for now.
Okay, so first question was around policies. The question was scalability and then the third access. So policies to spur the use of the internet. It's one of those questions we wish that there was a simple answer, but I don't think that there is one. For me, I'm happy to hear what anybody else has said, but for me, I think it ultimately comes down to education. Yeah, it comes down to education. We've really sort of neglected our educational system for a very, very long time. So as speaking for Conga, it's been really challenging because we've grown very fast. We've grown to, 350 something people or something like that. And we see a lot of Nigerians that come in, many people with a lot of potential, but we just find that the technical skill is it's lacking, to be honest. It's lacking. And that's not because there's anything genetically deficient about Nigerians or anything. It's just our government hasn't invested in education. So if there was one policy, I would say we need a country where education spending is higher than defense spending. So I think right now we spend, if I have the numbers correctly, about $1 billion a year on education, but about $9 billion a year fighting Boko Haram or whatever it is I think we're doing. I think we need to switch that around, and it's not because we can't afford to spend $9 billion a year on education. We can, but we just don't. But when you start doing that, then there are secondary effects. I mean, Silicon Valley formed because there was industry sitting next to a university. That's what you need for innovation. There are many countries that have tried to fake this thing. In London even has tried the whole Silicon roundabout thing. It doesn't work. You can't fake it. It happens naturally, and it typically happens when there's industry sitting next to a great university. If I were the president of Nigeria today, or the governor of Lagos, or the governor of Ogun State, I would be encouraging rapid industry formation around Yaba or Ife or some of these places. Just put industry right next to universities, so there's cross-pollination of ideas, and professors are doing research and commercializing the ideas and things like that. But this is 10, 20 years stuff I'm talking about. There's no shortcut to any of this, unfortunately, in my mind. So in terms of scale, I think there are certain business models that have shown that they can have scale. One is media, e-commerce, classified businesses. Again, just going back to what Robin is saying, one of the biggest challenges I found in building businesses is I can't tell you how many people I sort of begged I want the road to join. Let's do this together, let's do this together. And I'm not sure whether this is open for debate, maybe it's cultural, but we tend to want to stand alone a lot. And we like these, I think Jason called it once, digital high-five, where nothing substantial is getting done, but we're kind of just, I'm not sure why we're doing the projects we're doing, but really, I think scale ultimately starts with a group of individuals, 3 to 5 to 10, coming together to do something and sticking with it for a while instead of this sort of glamorous kind of digital high-five, just getting down to the real work. And then in terms of access, I mean, that's kind of connected to policy. I mean, there are countries that show us how to do this. I mean, we need to, there is no reason that there isn't fiber cable. Look, Lagos is 9,000 square kilometers. It's not big. There should be fiber on every road in Lagos, period. Simple. And then you let commercial companies take care of the last mile and getting it to customers' houses. There are some things government can do, just lay the fiber, that they just refuse to do. So, I mean, there are no easy answers to this. If there were easy answers, we could do it. But yeah, that's my view.
So I guess just to follow up on what Sid was saying, in terms of policy and government, you have to solve the access. It has to be solved somehow. From my understanding of last mile,